Hi, we are coming to you live. I'm super excited to have a great panelist, a great group of panelists here today. And kind of to kick everything off, we'll establish some ground rules. If you haven't attended one of our webinars before and you're tuning in, please comment, let us know who you are, where you're viewing in from. and Feel free to write out questions as we are chatting. We're going to save some time at the end for Q&A, so we'd love to hear from you. And if you're asking questions and we're not responding immediately, have no fear. We will save time at the end for questions, and we really want this to be collaborative. So without further ado, let's get started. So my name is Jess Black. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Ubiquitous. We're going to do a little round robin, so I will pass the mic over to Amelia if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Amazing. I am super thrilled to be here. I am not quite sure how I made myself kind of scoot into this room, but I'm really grateful that I'm here. I am a go-to-market specialist, so I help companies really drive revenue through relationships that they're building, and a lot of that comes through the content creation process. So that is the big focus right now. And I am excited to it's been a new initiative. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But content's been a pillar in my growth. And so I know that it has been for Casey and Suzanne as well. So excited to hear what we all have cooking in this combo.
Yes, beautiful. Us too. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Casey from Satva.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jess. I'm also so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to represent Satva and the work that we're doing. For those of you who aren't familiar, Satva is a direct-to-consumer luxury mattress brand. We handcraft all of our mattresses in the United States and have a plethora of other bedroom products as well. But my role with Satva is a paid media manager. I work on all of our online digital marketing initiatives, from TV buying to paid social, traditional performance channels like Google and otherwise. But our work with TikTok and Ubiquitous over the last 6 months or so has been a really new and exciting part of our brand awareness and upper funnel journey as a brand.
So amazing. Thank you for being here. Excited to get into the discussion. But without, yes, now let's pass over to Susanna.
Hi, all. I'm Susanna Lott. I am a campaign strategist here at Ubiquitous. So I work with our brands to build out, to identify and build out their bespoke strategy so that we can tackle influencer marketing from a really strategic and thoughtful place. And we take care of everything full funnel. So we are going to go from building out that strategy all the way through execution and reporting metrics as well. So very excited to have all of these faces representing a variety of different ways that we're going to all approach influencer marketing.
Love it. We got a stacked group here, stacked group of women. I'm excited. But let's dig in. I know that you all are tuning in to hear more about how you can capitalize on creator content for your brand. And we're really going to focus this whole discussion around UGC. So you will hear us say UGC a lot, and before, we get really deep in acronyms. If you're unfamiliar, UGC is user-generated content, and it's a pretty broad term. So we're going to try to break it down for you and talk through, some of the great success stories and why we believe you really should be leaning into UGC to promote your brand message. But then also some of the challenges, learn from our mistakes so that you can have all the success working with creators, working with your internal teams to generate content that is compelling. So great. Let's start off. We'll be a little broad here, but would love to start, and I'll just call on people as we're going. But Casey, first question, what role has UGC played with Satva kind of beginning to now?
Yeah, absolutely. UGC has been really interesting within Satva. I think for any brand, UGC has really kind of shifted its scope. I think it used to be a nice to have, and now it's kind of a must have, because we've seen the influence that consumers and creators specifically can have over their own audiences in a way that brands can't necessarily tap into to the same degree. There's a level of authority and authenticity that you get when using UGC that we've been able to scale really well as a brand that we weren't seeing, we are seeing on TV, but in different ways because it's a totally different platform. So UGC has really allowed us to expand the type of consumer that we're speaking to outside of just the ways that our brand normally looks on TV or other channels.
Love it. Yeah, I love how you said it's kind of providing this avenue for for creators to kind of relate to your audience in a way that brands can't. Sometimes it feels like as a brand, you're like a parent kind of coming in, trying to be cool, trying to speak the same lingo, but it's very different when your friend is telling you about something. And that's kind of what creators are. It's like a friend telling you about this product or this service that they really like. Hits
Absolutely.
home. Amelia, what kind of role has UGC played from the beginning to now? How have you seen it kind of progress?
I did not realize what I was totally doing jumping into this creator world at first. It was where I don't think any of us really did, right? You just start creating and you're like, oh, I know more than I thought I did prior. And then you get opened up to so many different opportunities for growth and so many different avenues. So, kind of venturing out on my own a bit currently, it's led to this opportunity of being able to partner up with specific brands where I feel as though I can add a ton of value and it's mutual beneficial. They're getting benefit right back because our ICP is very similar. So we're speaking to the same audience, but it's where they're leveraging my network, I'm leveraging their network, and it's just tapping into way more companies and more people. And then it's also showing how you can do things and teaching people as well, because there's that, fear of not knowing what to do or how to create or where to start. And that is something that I'm grateful I didn't really have a pride or ego in the way. It really made me feel like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do because I just say what I want and what I want. And, I did a post not long ago that said, it was like, hey, there's all these LinkedIn takeover page things going on. I don't really know what it means, but I want to do it. So the other day I jumped on a company page and it was an awesome turnout of just the way that the content was shared. I attached a picture because I'm like, okay, let's do what the algorithm's saying is the best thing to do right now. And let's go and just partner with the right brand that has the right messaging right now to where it's just going to kind of burst out, and show way more than I thought it possibly could. So it's beneficial for my brand, it's beneficial for theirs. And so that's really been the pivotal thing for me is letting that pride and ego go to the side, creating and testing, trying and seeing what you can and can't do. And then kind of pushing things in different channels too, seeing as to what clicks with who and where your buyers are living, and then going and being able to reach them in those places.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no like one size fits all or formulaic way to go about collaborating between brands, creators, generating content. Yeah, there's no rule book, which is intimidating, but yeah, but freeing at the same time. Yeah. Suze, what are your thoughts on what role UGC has played from beginning to now?
So for me, it really started on the brand side and looking for and tapping into the creativity of the creators to utilize socially, right? So whether it's like a newsletter or it's on an Instagram feed, it was very kind of surface level of like, this is the current color palette we're in and we want to get something different than our stock images and we have some relationships, let's leverage. What I'm seeing now working with brands though is it's going so much deeper. It's hard launching onto a new platform. It's finding creators that represent the voice, the tone, the maybe direction. I love working with brands that are like switching up kind of their internal brand voice, and finding creators that represent that and can really show that to their, current customer base. Maybe they're trying to tap into a new customer base. So it's really gotten just a lot deeper and a lot more strategic for brands.
Totally. And what do you think are some of the biggest like changes, I guess, that have happened with UGC in the past year? And why do you think some of those changes have come about?
I would
Asking you,
say,
Suze. So.
yeah, I would say, thank you for clarifying.
I
I would
know.
say some of the biggest changes is brands having more and more trust in the creators. So kind of being able to look at a creator's content and leveraging current partnerships or starting new partnerships, but being able to kind of predict that and understand that the content that they're showing, right? When somebody shows you who they are, believe it. When they're showing you that, then knowing what you're going to get from that creator. And so I think just that level of trust has continued to deepen between creators and brands. And it really just gives an opportunity for more creativity, more alignment, and just like a lot better content for everybody.
Totally. It's not just about hitting the same user with the same piece of content, X number of times to get a conversion. You have to lead with a really compelling and entertaining story. Brand storytelling, I think, has really come to the forefront, even in performance marketing. We can care about data, but also still really allow for more creative freedom and having a distinct point of view in our content in a way that, I don't know, whenever I was starting as a performance marketer in, 2014, it was just very different. It was all about, okay, you need to have these sales propositions in every piece of content that you produce, and you have to have the slogan, because it was all about repetition. But users are so savvy nowadays, it doesn't really land unless there's some kind of authenticity to it. Amelia, how have you seen things change?
Going from being like my career being in the sales side and then jumping to the marketing side gave me a totally different outlook on things, because I realized, okay, what good marketing look like, not just marketing, what good marketing look like, and how to actually show up for a specific brand. So being asked to, hey, will influencer marketing being like so massively on the rise. And that's going to be, I think, something that's going to be huge in 2024 with these brands and these specific creators partnering up. And it's going to be that they've got to adopt the tone. They've got to adopt the, not just the messaging, but it's like everybody, you kind of are saying the same thing, but everybody's got their own creative way. And it's where a lot of companies, you're seeing these like media companies kind of show up too, because people are thinking, oh, we need to also create this video content. Oh gosh, yeah, of course you do, because people want to just see what's good. Like they want to know, okay, how do I do this? And I'm going to trust the person who's going to be telling me this. And this person has been talking about this for a while, but they also have a passion and a belief behind it. So having that passion and belief, I know from seeing from the outside, looking at other creators, you can tell when there's the authentic, person, or there's a person who just looking for like a little bit of a paycheck, or whatever it may be. We all know it. And so I never want to be that person to where I'm saying yes to partnering with a brand and not showing up totally as myself and saying this is what my use case is for, with this brand, or what I believe like is going to be the forefront of why I'm literally representing them and showing up on their behalf. And it might be in different communities. It might be in different channels, omni-channel, all these different things, like I was saying. But it's been, we've now got to really think about what's going into 2024 and like the creator content, the UGC, everything. This is the future. I mean, this is exactly where people have got to focus. If these brands, if you want to get ahead, like you've got to have the creators on your side.
100%. Casey, what have you seen as far as how things have changed really in the last year?
Yeah, I think that in the last year, especially coming from SOTFA specifically, it's something that we talked about for well over a year before we finally got the courage to actually try it and move forward. And I think a lot of brands are probably in the same place, in the same boat. A lot of marketers don't really know how to start, but we know that creator content is extremely successful, and UGC has a huge place in overall marketing strategies now. And it's created this kind of spot market for even more creators to come on and create amazing videos, photo, whatever the UGC use case is. And now it's so much more accessible. There are marketplaces to tap into creators. There are agencies you can work with. And as a brand, it has just made getting into UGC and just starting that much easier. And then I think we're also seeing a lot of brands realize how much more affordable UGC is when compared to traditional like high production value video or things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And the scale at which you can still leverage this type of content. So I think from my brand's perspective, that's really what we're seeing is just how accessible it's become, especially over the last year.
Oh, I love that, and totally agree. We're seeing the same kind of thing. The whole industry has matured a lot and pretty fast. It feels like, things were maybe stagnant for a number of years, and then think through just the rise of short form video, vertical video content, of course TikTok, but also reels and shorts. The whole definition of what a creator is really broadened, and it's been great for the industry as a whole and for brands, because more supply, just, demand has increased, but supply has exploded as well, which just lots of great opportunities for brands of all sizes. So if you're speaking to a brand and they are wanting to get started and start working with creators to develop content, what do you think are some of the important things that brands and people get wrong with UGC? As we were kind of talking before this, we were talking about not really paying attention to target audience. So Casey, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about audience identification as it applies to UGC? Because it's, different than influence marketing a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we even as a brand have, as a luxury mattress brand, have this tendency to think of ourselves in a really specific way. But we allowed ourselves to break that mold a little bit when we forayed into the UGC world and really let creators be authentic to their own brands. But we also, have been doing some testing as well and seeing what happens when we're more prescriptive and asking these creators to make their videos and their content really align with what we think our brand should look like. And it's really interesting because we've seen results that are promising in both directions, right? Like we see content that looks like what we would typically put out on our own channels that performs really well, and we love to repurpose it. But maybe it doesn't actually have the scale of somebody who we wouldn't have originally ever pictured ourselves working with. And so I think just not being afraid to test, and retest until you find the types of creators that work for you. I think that a lot of brands would be surprised to see the types of people and content that they get when they allow themselves to break the mold of what they believe a video should look like, or what they believe of any type of content should look like. And I think that's the best way to see what other ways you can exemplify your brand and speak to maybe new audiences. But it's really, there's no perfect recipe, that's for sure.
Totally.
I think we've all kind of said the same thing. Like, there's not a playbook here, and it's, you look at the people who are doing things and you're like, oh, that makes sense. And it also aligns with like your brand and your, the mission is that you're trying to accomplish. And it's okay, let me do this in my way, and how I can best do this and amplify my voice with their brand and put those two together, and really push things forward. So I think, across the board, I think we're all saying the same thing. Like, there's not a playbook, but go and find the people who are doing things best. I think that goes for anything, right? It's like, find the people who are really excelling in things in life, and it's like you go and figure out why they're doing that, and then you figure out your own technique and your own ways of going about really amplifying what it is that you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take what serves you and then keep it moving. Like, you know,
All advice
that
from here doesn't have to be taken. Yeah, totally.
yeah, Corey had said in the chat, like testing is so important in marketing, being willing to test and retest. But I think that is so true. Sometimes we can get married to a certain idea, and or sometimes fear is what holds us back from testing and trying new things. But that really is, when you boil it down, like a core principle of marketing is failure is there's no such thing as failure in marketing. Honestly, everything is a learning. Everything gets you closer, as long as you're still being strategic and really analyzing the data over time. There's no failures. So it's about repetition. It's about getting it out there. I love that. And Suze, you talk to all of our brand partners and work with them on their strategy, and targeting is something that I know comes up on every single call. So what are your thoughts on audience, identifying audiences when it comes to UGC?
Yeah, I think I loved what Amelia said, and it piggybacked on Casey from the creator perspective of like, this is my way of communicating this. And we can identify creators that speak the way that I would with my brand, right? Or creators that maybe they might have a different take on it. And so I think it's first identifying that piece of like, am I looking for creators that like have a natural, like I see that this clear natural fit in how they communicate or visually what it looks like. So I think there's that piece. So you have to identify which route you're kind of going in. I think it's also important to look at not just who that creator represents, but who their audience represents. Like, what are the interests of someone that's watching their content? Because that's going to help you also tap into their audience too. Creators know their audience and know it's going to pop off on the platform. So trusting them gives you insight into the audience and the community they've cultivated. So I think that's going to be like kind of that second layer and how it kind of plays out.
That's super smart. Yeah. Don't just stop at like what you see on, the front page of the creator's profile. Like, look through the comments, see what their relationship is like, see how their audience kind of, responds to their content. That's
you might
a really
discover
helpful
like
hack.
You might discover like a small segment that you didn't even know existed yet.
Totally.
Comments are gold. There's always gold in them. You never know. Like at any platform, you're like, okay, if you just go search, like you don't know, it could be great, it could be terrible. You never know. But like more times than not, it's going to be good. And it's going to be where you're like, wow, there's a lot of engagement here. And then you can go and like broaden your reach with what you're trying to do. If there is alignment there with what you are doing based off, okay, this person's brand, your brand, and what you're trying to share through UGC, all of that is we're like, okay, great, go broaden it by getting in front of the right other people too that you didn't have that reach prior to having.
Yeah, it's basically it's kind of like adding UGC to your overall strategy opens up like another avenue for social listening outside of all the ones you were already looking at, and opens you up to new opportunities and new audiences.
Yeah,
totally.
So when we were first kind of kicking off the convo, I had said, UGC, it's a broad term. So I want to kind of double click on some of that and really start breaking down like the users part of this, because users, we're talking a lot about creators, but really it can extend beyond creators. It can be your customers, it can be employees. So Casey, from the creator's perspective, how do you work with creators in UGC?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the interesting things about being maybe a luxury mattress brand is that we're not a product that you see every day. Once you get your mattress, you really aren't looking at it until you change your sheets. And even then, maybe you're not even thinking about your actual mattress. So we aren't our organic UGC and what our actual customers are sharing on their own social channels is probably maybe smaller than what a lot of brands can do and repurpose. So I think that's one of the reasons why we shifted towards working with creators specifically. so that we could tap into them and identify a few key messages that we wanted to have them share with their audiences in a way that would resonate based on their own personal brands. So we gave a few opportunities and said, these are, if you could hit on maybe one of these key components in a piece of content that you think would most align with your audience or most resonate with them, take that. If the rest doesn't make sense, it doesn't need to be a sales video. We just want it to be authentic, and we want it to be really entertaining. That was really important to us when working with creators. We wanted people that were putting out content that people enjoyed watching, not just another video that was selling another product that maybe you don't actually need, but adding value, adding entertainment. That's how we really approached our creator program, and opened ourselves up to, again, selecting creators that maybe we wouldn't have typically if we were just sourcing them ourselves.
Totally. That makes a ton of sense. It being a luxury mattress line, people are not just sharing their mattresses as much. So needing to go out and kind of start the conversation, that also could kind of get the flywheel going as well for your organic customers to, start snapping their pics and leaving more and more reviews. So
and we do get
smart.
We do get a lot of great content from our customers that share on Instagram or otherwise once they get their mattress and are really excited about it. And that content is amazing. And I think people should always, tap into their customers first and kind of promote the people that already love your brand. I think that's a great way to do it as well. But if there's key messages that you think you want to resonate a little bit more strongly, you think that will help provide value to your brand or add value to someone who's maybe considering your brand, I think creators are a great way to do that.
I think a great way with what you've been kind of just to jump in what you're saying. I feel like testimonial videos are huge, right? So having those testimonial videos, and then you can see the people who are like, oh wow, you've got like a really large audience here and you've got a lot of people who maybe might want to tap into what it is that like we're doing over here. Awesome. Like, let's leverage what they're doing and then amplify that with the people who are already using it, who genuinely, authentically are talking about it in the first place. It's authentic, it's genuine. They were the ones who bought the mattress. They sleep on the mattress every single night, right? That's where they may not be showcasing it to the world and taking pictures laying on the mattress, right? Whatever. I hope they're not like doing that all the time. Right? Where you realize that people, it's like, oh, they're unboxing or whatever they're doing. Awesome. That's something that people want to see. And like, I'll get stuck and I'll be watching things, and you want to be like, what is it? Like, why do you love this so much? So you find the things that it's like, okay, that's engaging. And so almost taking self-inventory too. What am I stopping and looking at? Like, what is it that I drawn to? And then you can kind of push that into, does this match with what I'm trying to do with, partnering with a brand or being that brand that's trying to partner with the user?
Yeah. I mean, Sue's, again, from kind of a customer kind of perspective, how we do utilize our customers and are always working with our customers to generate new piece of content, whether it's a blog piece or, video testimonials, but, share your perspective on how we've done some of that and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think customers are a great place to start that journey, to figure out. I think one of the best things to figure out is like, what are the stories? What are the unique stories, the opportunities, the successes? And this can be done not only with companies like Ubiquitous, where we have a clear, these are our customers, let's ask them for feedback, interview them, have a video, etc., whatever that might look like. But it's also, CPG brand can do this too. Have a customer success or experience department, and you get like a really cool story that comes in. What can you do do with that? Can you request that that quote be pulled? Can you talk about, is there like maybe they get like oh my gosh, I got like had the best experience with XYZ at the company because they, helped me through this issue or opportunity I had, right? Okay, well, like how can you extract that? And then how can you build upon it? And so I think those are the people that they have those authentic experiences. They can speak, they are customer to customer. And so figuring out just really creative ways and engaging and authentic ways to kind of tap into them. And then from there, it's kind of the sky's the limit / the customer when they say yes or no to something. And so, yeah, so always yes, we always hope. But yeah, I think like diving into that, or even if that's something where, maybe you pull a quote from or something, can you take that and maybe build a greater marketing story, or maybe build, a value add resource around that as well, and still kind of protecting that customer's unique experience too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like word of mouth at scale. That's what all of this is it's peer-to-peer connecting people. And I mean, word of mouth has always been like the golden goose of influence or of marketing, or growing your brand. That's the ultimate goal, is to have your customers be your own salespeople, and they're advocating for your brand without you having to be in the room or spend a dollar. And that is kind of exactly what UGC, influencer marketing, utilizing customer testimonials and content, amplifying them at scale really is. Like it's resonates in a very different way. But we can also use like employees and stuff too. Do you guys have any thoughts on how to utilize employees?
I think when it comes to employees is, okay, is there a place for employees to talk? And I think because a lot of employees are trying to figure out how to, okay, what platform am I talking on? Where am I going to really be this voice to the brand that I'm a part of? And that can be where there's the fear that gets in the way, right? So having it to where it's like, maybe it's a community that's built, right? And it's like the people who are the users, and then there's the brand, there's the people who are those that are in customer success, who are able to really be like, okay, we're the soft cushion for you. Like if you need anything, we're right here. But they're the people who also have the answers as well. And then there's the employees able to like have a safe place to be able to talk. So I think communities are like a huge place to go and really be that strong voice. And the setting things up. So, I mean, even like, let's say you're going in a Slack community, great. Okay, let's set up your keywords to be able to be specifically geared towards what it is that you are representing and that you are doing content about. And then having your employees have it very simplified. So you're showing up as that expert right away because you're getting that little ding from, Slack where it's saying someone's talking about XYZ. Awesome, cool. This could be like someone who's asking a question about what it is, or, and then you could either have, hey, this might be helpful for you. And it's one of your employees has a quick little video, or it's like, hey, here's 30 seconds of like what we do. It's so being able to really push that and making it to where it's not this heavy lift for them, I think is one of the biggest things. Like a safe place to go, or going within a community where it is safe, they feel safe sounds stupid because we're all adults, right? So like it sounds stupid. But as I'm saying it, I'm like, okay, it's not my kids. It's not like a safe place where I'm like, okay, be safe, y'all. But the fear of what do I do? How do I say this? And am I overthinking so much about what this content is going to be? Because I think that's one of the massive things that will hinder for companies to be able to really amplify the voices within, is that they don't know what they're saying. And so it's having it to where it's like, here, let me help you. We don't necessarily give you a script, but like, here's like the hot topics right now, what buyers are talking about and what like your audience is saying. Give them those hot topics and let them have their own voice. And, and then test with 5 people, right? Test with 3 and see who really is like, this is fun. I like this. And people are showing up for it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, see who jumps at the opportunity kind of internally and test some things out. And yeah, I mean, we have a couple of different employees internally that are producing various different kind of different types of content. You know, Bryn, who's on our team, she has an act, like she's a formally trained actress, and so she does great with like all of our more produced like YouTube kind of content. But then one of our other employees, Corey, he's making like all these fun like reaction kind of videos. So like just start the conversations, have an avenue for idea sharing, and yeah, safety, the psychological safety, I think is super important, and you can't manufacture that. You kind of have to it's something that you have to practice, you know. But listen and give people the opportunity, and then as soon as you see that like sparkle in someone's eye or that excitement around it, then take your hands off the wheel and let them go. see what
result, right? It's like if you show the results within, it's like, oh, people are like, oh, maybe I should be doing this. And then you kind of see this like train happening. And so I think it starts at the smaller scale of the people who already have a little bit of that like passion and drive and wanting to do it. Then it's those who are like, I want to do that. No idea where to start. But having it to where, okay, but look what I was able to do in doing so. And it's like, oh wow, okay, maybe I can do this. I can do hard things, right? Like space, I can do hard things. Like, no, anybody can go do this. Like you really can, but it's so strategic at the same time. Like it is strategy. You have to be strategic, but you also have to know, like, okay, you don't want to be that person who's showing up. And if you say that you're the user, there's the brand, like you don't want to be the person who's just asking to do so, right? Like, because that is the last thing that you ever want to do. So the authenticity is like, so, I mean, it matters on the nth degree. The genuine factor of like, okay, you know what you're doing, great. Your like content's great. And I'm believing everything you're saying because what you're saying, you're sitting there eating a salad and I'm like, I want that salad because like that company is amazing. But you're eating it because you love it and you keep going back. Just for a stupid example, because I was thinking about someone's content today who literally was doing that, and I was watching this salad, and I'm like, "What am I doing?" I was like, "I want that," and I'm like, "But like pushing out content with different food and stuff," and I'm like, "Okay, that's cool because it's the content for these different brands that he's partnering with, and there's the alignment there to where he's kind of built his like path of this is where I want to go with how I want to be this whole food person where everyone goes to and they're like, oh, he's the food guy that like talks about all of, all these different great things to go and go try in Houston, whatever. I don't know. Houston's probably bad, but whatever it may be. And so it's cool to see. It's cool to see the fruition of how things are progressed, over even the past like couple of months, I would say. That people are really starting to think like 2024, like something's got to change. Like if we want change to happen, like inaction's still an action. So like you either take action and you figure out how to do where there's UGC or you don't, because this is, like I said, it's the future and we all know that. That's why we're here.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. All signs point to, I mean, it just continuing to evolve and grow. You're right, it moves really quickly. So got to stay in the know, but luckily, as we were discussing earlier, barrier to entry is a lot lower. It's much more accessible. There's so much more content around how to do that. You're joining this webinar here now. We're talking about it. Like it's not as, behind this veil anymore. And yeah, it's not even just confined to a specific type of influencer that has millions of followers like it was 5 years ago. It's really just anyone, employees, customers, great stuff. So we've got about 20 minutes or so left. Oh no, I'm sorry, we're at 45. So we don't have too much time left, but I have a couple more questions and just call out to the chat over here. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in there. And we will have some time for questions, but all right, so we talked through the different types of users in UGC. How do you best equip them? to add value? I feel like we've touched on some of this, but let's say from the creative kind of brief perspective, Casey, what are your thoughts on how you set up your users or your creators for success?
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of the things that Suze was talking about earlier, which is trust and trust in the brand to allow the creators to do their thing. But at the same time, we want to create a brief that's informed and provides them with the information that they need to make content that we're going to love, but their audience will love just as much. And so I think for us, that really boils down to identifying, again, maybe like 3 kind of messaging, like core messages that we would love to see. And it doesn't need to be a select all, like choose maybe 1 or 2 of those that you think as a creator you can develop into a concept that ties in really well with your brand authentically, and your personal brand, that is. And beyond that, we really try not to be too prescriptive. From there, I think a lot of where we are most helpful as a brand is in the concepting stage. Once we get some ideas back and providing feedback based on, I think the message could be a little bit stronger if maybe you shifted like 1 or 2 like minor components here, but really allowing the creators to do what it is that they do best, which is create content, but being true to the messages that we want to send and being really clear and concise about what those are. For a specific campaign, in our case, that could look like, we really want to highlight that our beds don't come in boxes, because that's something that a lot of people, especially with all of the emerging direct-to-consumer mattress brands,
beds, yeah.
People think a lot of times that our beds might come in a box, but that's not true. Maybe a campaign for us looks like we really want to showcase our white glove delivery, but do it in a way that makes sense for you. That could be talking about your back pain and how this was such a, it could go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And just allowing the creators to do what they do best, but keeping it clear. That way, I think as a brand too, you get something that you're happy with the end result of. If you're not clear about the message that you want to hear, then I'm not really sure what you're expecting the end result to look like.
Yeah. I'm really learning that these days, like big time. It's like, okay, be clear and concise about what you're saying and doing. Like, do not be repetitive and say things 18 different times, 18 different ways. And no one wants to hear that. Like, people will be like, what is this girl doing? And does she understand what she's even saying? People won't believe what you're saying, because if you're not clear about it, it's like, okay, well, you just said that in a different rendition completely. So what am I even, why am I listening to this? It's like you're drawn to those who are confident. So knowing how to like really hone in on those strengths that people have, and having that creator have that voice too of, their brand, and saying like, this is what works best for me, and having that autonomy to be able to give that feedback back to the, back to the brand. It's like, okay, you got to work in sync. Like, you've got to be able to say, does this even make sense for us to collaborate here? Does it or not? Because if it doesn't, great, there's a ton of other people out there, and there's a ton of other people that they can go and work alongside of and really push things on. So knowing who, and that goes back straight to where we were at the beginning, like your audience, who it is, and if it's serving them in the very best way, like you're saying, Casey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all things point back to, always. Suze, I'm hearing a lot of freedom with guardrails talk. And so gosh, if I had a nickel for every time we say freedom with guardrails on a call when we're talking to brands, but it's true. You can still provide a nice framework and give some direction, but how have you seen, the brief kind of process evolve? I think even since we were starting in the early days, Suze, we've changed our brief and have iterated on it so many different times.
We really have. And I think the one thing that's kind of stuck through it is that approach of freedom with guardrails. And it's all the things that Casey and Amelia are both talking about. It's giving the information to the creator so that they can make an informed decision and connect with the brand as like true to themselves as possible. So I think things to steer away from are, really scripted pieces. I think it's honing in on that messaging like Casey discussed. So, okay, we might have like, a sale coming up, or we have a new product launching, or we have a challenge that we want to address, or, as our brand is the solution to it. Kind of honing in on within that, like kind of which direction you want to head, but allowing the creator to find their own narrative and connection to it. That's really the key piece with that. And that's really kind of giving that value add to the creator and equipping them with what they need to be successful. It's okay, here are top pieces. If you're a big differentiator or thing that you're trying to overcome is you're not a bed in a box, right? That you have this full, amazing delivery service that, I think will just handle everything completely for you, and what an ease that is. And maybe you've got a really, maybe you're a mom with 3 kids and you've got a really busy life, and you're like, they'll take care of everything, like, done, sign me up. That may look a lot different.
Like,
all of us up, right? But that may look different than the person that's like, you know what, I have had back issues from being like, like baseball player from, middle school through college, or, beyond. And for me, it's the quality that, and the variety of different like mattress options that it offers. So it's allowing those creators, because if you were to swap those stories and those purposes, then it may hit, but it may not hit as true to, yeah.
In the way you want. Yeah.
In the way you want. Yeah. So it's giving them that direction. Scaffolding, think of it like scaffolding. Like, it's the scaffolding of here's the messaging, but within that, build the house how you want.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good analogy. I like that one.
I know. I'm stealing that one. Well, I'm going to skip down a little bit, and I really want to talk lastly through measurement, because we've talked a lot about the discovery process, the creative development process. But once you have content out live, Casey, we can start with you, but how do you measure impact with UGC?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, because as a brand, we really try to make very data-informed decisions. And I think Suze has seen this firsthand with my data requests. But no, we try to think of how we try to approach any component of our overall marketing strategy from a data perspective first, and that's how we measure against success. In the upper funnel, that looks a lot different than our traditional performance channels like paid search. But in UGC and TikTok specifically, we compare that more similarly to TV. And our KPI for success there is CPM. Our goal as a brand right now to build brand awareness is to reach the largest amount of people at the lowest possible cost. So we use CPM as kind of a North Star metric when evaluating baseline success for our upper funnel efforts. But we also like to tie that back to in-platform, on-site Google Analytics, the nitty-gritty that we I think are kind of drawn to as performance marketers by nature. But looking at, in particular, some of the things that we looked at when evaluating our UGC successes, we look at new users to the site and what's the percentage of session volume that we're getting from these creators, because we actually saw and continue to see that we're tapping into new audiences that have never been to Satva before. And the new user volume that we get is really quite staggering for the UGC that we've put out so far. So looking at tying in the CPM, and again, using that as our North Star, but tying that back to lower funnel metrics kind of helps build this funnel in your mind and evaluate success across different types of content that might look really different in platform. So it just kind of creates an even playing field for all the types of UGC that you might put out there as a brand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's tying that, and I'm sure you've also seen some lower funnel impacts. I mean, you mentioned new users on the site, but the goal is that by widening the top of funnel and introducing yourselves to a new market, that you also are able to see lift in your overall site rankings. Like there are some impacts that happen in offline, in quotes, channels like influencer or TV can be, where it's not, just activity happening on your site, that really do have low funnel impacts and can greatly improve like LTV long term. It's awesome that you guys are so data forward, honestly. We love working with performance marketers. It's our favorite.
It's really actually, sorry, I'll just add, it's really kind of compelling, like how we've seen since we've invested in these upper funnel like CPM plays, our share of search and our market share has increased over the last year, since we've been really investing in this type of strategy that we weren't before.
Okay, I have a question.
Love that.
No, really quick. So this is like for me, maybe this is like for the audience, I feel like as a whole. How did you go about saying, hey, we need to invest in this? Because I feel like that's where a lot of companies, a lot of people are saying, okay, maybe this is great, but like, how am I going to get this to be something that's going to be worth investing in? How do I get people bought in on this?
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, right? Like you have to continue to prove success, but I think just looking at the volume of users that were on TikTok, we were like, we're not really doing anything to leverage this platform or speak to these people here at all. How can we make ourselves present in another channel, and then have kind of steadily continued our investment in that over the last 6 months or so.
That's cool. Yeah. I was just curious.
And feel like Amelia, it's
a good question.
No, I mean, as you asked that question, I was kind of reminded of something that you said earlier on in the call, which is analyze your own behavior. Like I live on the internet. I work from home. I'm constantly, I'm very plugged in online, but I never make just blind purchases anymore. And like straight from a Google like PPC ad. I'm constantly, even if I like a product, I'm still going and looking on TikTok or Instagram to try to see like real life footage of this product in action. And then I want to go over to Google and look at reviews. And then I want to YouTube this, product review. It's a very omni-channel, holistic buyer experience. And as attribution has gotten so much more challenging, 5 years ago before, or really, I guess only 3 years ago before ATT and just losing visibility into mobile traffic in particular, it was a lot easier for performance marketers to just say like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what my CAC as a percent of revenue is on Meta, so I'm just going to keep feeding the vending machine dollars. But you can't make those kinds of decisions anymore, and so you just kind of have to look inward sometimes. And if you're a marketing manager and joining in on this call and wondering like how you can kind of advocate for this channel or getting resistance, I think there's just so much more data and like benchmarking online that proves that this is a channel and a strategy that's not going anywhere, that's only going to be increasing over time. And so, even if your boss isn't a huge social shopper, get some data, put together a little business case for it, and savvy bosses won't want to miss the boat.
For sure. And go to the people 100%. Who are doing it right again, and like ask them like, hey, how do I even come up with something like, hey, how did you convince your boss that this is a really great plan? And, learn from those who are doing it and see. And that's why I was like, Casey, how'd you do this? Because it's like, I want to know. She knows what she's talking about. It's like, great. We just learned on the spot here. This is great.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Amelia, how do you view measuring success on your posts?
For me, a lot is, it's the dark social, right? It's let's get it right. It's very much so not the dark web, you guys, at all. And I had someone say that to me not long ago, and I was like, no, I'm not in the dark web by any stretch of the imagination. This is not what we're talking about. It's the dark social of not being able to attribute what it is, where things are coming from in the most simplistic way. It's not people just coming straight mean, people are not going to sales to go buy something right now. They are not. It's just the way, the lay of the land, and people are avoiding sales at all costs because they don't want to go sit and go through a demo of, or go and shop really for a mattress. They don't want to go into the store. Like, they want to know and look at the reviews, and they want it white glove delivery to their door, right? Like, that's how
Mhm.
are wanting things to be done. It's like they're going to find out how that's done. So looking at how for me, it's more on the services and product side of things, opposed to it being necessarily, the white glove delivery. I'm not showing up at people's homes and helping them with carrying a mattress by any means, but being able to track what it is where people are coming from, and what channel it's through, and having it that open text field right on, like, just the form of, like, how did you hear about us, is like one of the most basic things in the entire world, but it matters tremendously, because if you cannot figure out where they came from, how in the world are you going to track one thing? Like, you have no clue,
Yeah.
unless you just want to go sit there one by one and be like, okay, well, we count all of these people, and then we put this in like an Excel sheet. Like, no, there's better ways to do this. So knowing it, making it easy for people who are looking at your content and, viewing it, and teaming up with different partners who have access, like different platforms that have the capabilities to be able to really give you those metrics too, is huge. And I mean, I'm just going to shout out, like, Audience Plus is a really, they've been doing some things that are really cool recently, to be able to show you kind of on the back end some of the like, who's actually viewing things, and what is it that they're trying to, like, how long did they view this segment of what it was that the content that you did, which is like, whoa, that I heard that today, and I was like, wow, that's another level of being able to see this is what they're searching for, because it was this little bit. So really tapping into who knows what they're doing on the platform level, but also this simplistic way of just, what are the little things that I can do that are going to make my life easier, to know where I can go and what's resonating the most, and then asking for feedback too. So that's a big thing. So I'll toss Morgan Ingram out there. I know, Jess, Morgan, and so
Ah,
he was like, I see you're doing something with Jess, and he said that not long ago, and I was like, yeah, you know her, and he's like, yeah, she's great, and I was like, amazing. So
I just
he
got off a call with him like
you
an
did
hour ago. Yeah.
lessons. We'll just both head up. So, anyways, he was saying, he's been helping me a lot with just figuring out how to really be the voice that I'm trying to be when it comes to a lot of this brand awareness, and driving my content in the right channels, the right places, with right people who are going to really be attached to that, and if it resonates or not, and if it even makes sense. So he sent me this, like, 9-minute long video the other day, and he's like, here's your feedback for what I think. And it was like, oh, what I'm saying made sense here. It did not make sense here. So people, like, that you trust and have done things and done things really well, going to them and saying, does this make sense? Does this resonate? Like, I think that can move mountains too, by just measuring your
Mm.
success.
Wow. You're so right. Sometimes we overcomplicate things, but just like asking,
We
asking
do.
around and finding those trusted sources.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is that simple. But no, I think that's super, super helpful. And Suze, we got time for one more question, but do you have any kind of examples of how we measure success at
Yeah.
Ubiquitous?
I mean, Casey and Amelia have touched on all the pieces. I think the element I'll add to it will be dividing up based on goals and then how you're actually putting the content out there. So I think that's going to be really important, because when it looks like a piece of user created content that lives on your business page versus the creator's page, those two elements look different. If there's been any paid dollars put behind it to retarget, that's going to look different. And then also with all of these pieces, like, at what stage are you? Are you fresh to the platform? platform and, you're expecting 20,000 new users to be funneled in the first week, okay, let's evaluate, like, are we really there? Have we done the groundwork prior to that to make sure that we know that there is a presence now on this platform, and what are we doing to push users to our site, etc. So I think it's just looking at truly making sure you're comparing as close as you can an apple to an apple when you're evaluating those metrics of success. Again, all the metrics like Casey and Amelia have covered for sure. So
beautiful. Well, we are rounding home here. So, I don't think we have any immediate questions, but if anyone has any questions and you're watching this on the replay, please type the questions in the chat and we will respond to you. Feel free to also connect with all four of us here on this call. Message us. I know we all would love to shake hands virtually and meet you all, but really appreciate Casey, Amelia, Susanna, all of you coming on to our webinar here. It's been a pleasure. Got a lot of really great tips and tricks and hacks for people. So really appreciate your time. And thank you all for coming and joining us today.
Thank you. This is
Thanks
fun,
so
y'all.
much.
thanks, Jess.
Bye, y'all.